All collectors, we've come here to do a video on what I think are probably two of the most fantastic SS edged weapons to surface in many years. I'm sure that most of you were aware that Hitler had a pilot whose name was Hans Bauer, who flew with him all the way from the early 1930s during the days when Hitler barnstormed all these little towns to give political speeches, all the way to April 1945 at the end of the war in the bunker. In fact, Bauer escaped from the bunker along with Bormann and some of the other inner circle. Unfortunately, he was captured by the Russians and he served 10 years in a Russian gulag and was released in 1955. But what happened when he got home, his neighbor, who was obviously his friend, Bauer lived in Bavaria, had saved his chained SS dagger for him and gave it to him upon Bauer's arrival in Bavaria. And this is the dagger that we have today that is completely documented, along with a couple of other things that I'll show you. But I think it's one of the best artifacts that I've ever seen when you consider the history and the importance of such a dagger. So we'll take a look at the dagger, which I have right here on the table, and it's in a complete unclean state. It's in the same condition probably as the day that Bauer received it. As you can see, it's an early chained SS dagger. The mounts are all in nickel silver, and it has a Type 2 chain. But one of the most interesting aspects of the dagger is the fact that the crossguard is engraved with a swastika with a set of wings. Really beautifully done, and certainly an eye catcher. And then on the upper portion of the dagger, on the tang, Hans Bauer's initials also appear. Now the dagger itself is in well-worn condition, but everything's original. The paint is original. The ball has never been dropped. And the chain is a nice nickel Type 2 with the blackening in all of the links. And of course it has the usual Coulter Zeichen SS proof mark on the reverse. And I'll show you the blade also. There you can see that the blade's in fine condition. And just to give you some documentation on this. This is a picture of Bauer in the center with his co-pilot and his navigator with the famous Hitler aircraft in the background. Of course, Bauer also flew the D-2600, which was made so famous with Hitler's dramatic arrival at the Nuremberg rallies in 1934. There's also some photographs. This is the same photograph, and it's signed by Bauer and the navigator. And this photograph is Bauer with Hitler wearing his leather flying helmet, and also a fine photograph of Bauer with Hitler. And coming with this dagger is a letter from Mrs. Bauer stating about her husband being Hitler's flight captain going and signed on the back stating that the dagger was his dagger, and it was originally sold to Ray Zyla of Mohawk Arms back in the, I believe it was the late 90s. Coming with the dagger are also some interesting pieces. There's a crystal glass which has Hitler's standard on it, and this glass was kept in Hitler's airplane, and Bauer used it to get the Fuhrer a glass of water. And there's also a letter from Bauer himself in which he states that that was the case with the glass. And also with the glass is one of the smaller type plates used on airplanes. This particular plate also coming from Bauer and being in the Fuhrer's airplane with the Fuhrer's standard on the edge. Just think of the history here, collectors. Think of all the hundreds and hundreds of flights that Bauer made with Hitler. Hitler would not allow anyone else to fly him anywhere. Bauer wrote a book about his experiences with Hitler, which is a very interesting read because they talk about some of the things happened. I remember one thing in particular where Goering, they were in Tempelhof Airport, I believe, and Goering had just gotten a brand new airplane, and he was so excited he wanted Hitler to see it. And so Hitler and Bauer go up the ramp into Goering's airplane, and here it's all decorated in this real gaudy green and all kinds of fringe and hunting motif all over. And of course we all know how Herman was showing off, and the Fuhrer just kind of looked around and then turned around and walked down the ramp with Goering, with Bauer, I'm sorry, and said to Bauer, "I never want to see that again." And that's what he thought of Goering's airplane. But there's many, many experiences. One time a huntsman had captured an eagle in the Bavarian mountains and thought that it would be a great gift for Hitler in his garden at the new Reich Chancellery, I'm sorry, at the garden of the new Reich Chancellery. And the hunter brought the eagle to Hitler, and Hitler was very forlorn about it and disgusted, and ordered that the hunter take it back to where he got it and let it go. As you may know, Hitler was a great lover of animals and also children, but then again he probably went inside and signed a death warrant for 100,000 people, so it's a real enigma, his personality. But I believe that this dagger and the other items with Bauer are one of the greatest things to surface in many, many years, and what a piece of history. Well, collectors, we're not done yet. In addition to the Bauer chained SS dagger, we have another dagger that is also almost as important. The collector that has owned these things, a very nice couple that lived not too far from me, Mr. and Mrs. Jeff Grimm, they decided that they wanted to collect things that belonged to people that were responsible for Hitler's transportation. So of course we have Bauer with the airplane, but also we have Hitler's very famous chauffeur, Erich Kempke. I'm sure that that's a familiar name to everyone. Kempke began driving for the Fuhrer in 1936 after Julius Schaub, I think his name, was killed. He was, or died of a heart attack. He was the former driver. And Kempke, just like Bauer, Hitler had utmost faith in him, and no one else was allowed to drive Hitler anywhere. And just like Bauer, Kempke was also in the Chancellery up until 1945, at the end of the war. This dagger is very interesting. It's, as you can see, an early SS dagger. It has all nickel fittings, and the true collectors will see right away that it's an Eichhorn dagger by the way the cross guards look, and it's in a good anodized scabbard. But what's really unique about it, well, maybe we'll show you first that it, in addition to being a nice dagger, it's got one spot here. It's also a full Ernst Röhm inscription. And you'll also note that the SS serial number that's stamped on the crossguard right below the District 1 is number 2803. And yes, collectors, that was the SS number of Erich Kempke. We have some photographs of Kempke. He's strutting down a street in Germany with newlyweds here, who was Trudel and Hans Junge. They were, Trudel was one of Hitler's secretaries. And then in another photograph, Kempke is shown standing with Hitler. And then a great magazine here that is about Hitler's limousine, and there's lots of pictures in here that show Kempke driving the limousine. And here's a better picture of Kempke driving, and he's in this particular magazine because there's an article written in here by Fred Stevens. Fred is well known in the collecting community, the author of Reproduction Recognition, and Fred wrote this article on the Kempke dagger when it first came out of the woodwork, about 15 or 20 years ago. So again, something that is very, very historical, and you would ask, well, why would Kempke not have gotten his Rome inscription ground like the order was, especially somebody as close to Hitler and so forth? But I think it was a case where Rome, of course, was shot and eliminated, and of course it was a big deal throughout Germany, and but despite that, Kempke was probably busy. He had a lot of things to do, and he probably just put the dagger in a drawer and ordered another one. Why not? I'm sure this happened in almost all of the circumstances where we see full Rome inscriptions. And maybe people that were that close to the hierarch, those kind of rules maybe didn't even apply to them. Who knows? But isn't it a wonderful thing to see something like this that survives to this day? A very, very interesting dagger that belonged to a very interesting man. So I hope you enjoyed seeing those two pieces. It's not often that we see rare things like this, so I thought it would be a good time to just take a few minutes and share them with you. Hope you liked it. Thank you.